Before we get right into the meat of this video, just imagine that you have a big company and you make a ship that you claim is unsinkable. Over 2,000 people board the ship, it sinks, and nearly 3/4 of its passengers lose their lives. And the lawsuit that followed the Titanic disaster was indeed Titanic. The survivors and families of the deceased filed claims for compensation totaling over $13 million from White Star Line, who were the transport company responsible. White Star Line claimed that the circumstances leading to the accident were unforeseeable. Due to the Board of Trade's report claiming the sinking was solely the result of colliding with an iceberg and a lack of solid evidence to the contrary, they reached a settlement and only received $665,000. That's just $430 for each life lost. The judge deemed White Star Line innocent of any criminal negligence. The Board of Trade's inquiry and subsequent report was at face value very extensive. 36 days, 100 witnesses, 25,000 questions, government officials, White Star Line officials, ship designers and experts. But the official investigators were from the Board of Trade, the very same officials that deemed the Titanic fit for sea before its maiden voyage, even though it had only a third of necessary lifeboats. Having previously said the Titanic was fit for sea, they weren't about to say that now it wasn't. The judge who presided over the inquiry was a shipping interest judge who once presided over a toast at the Shipwright Guild saying, "May nothing adversely affect the great carrying power of this wonderful country." So he wasn't about to publicise negligence or poor build quality without strong evidence of the fact, and that evidence, if indeed any existed, was at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. An officer and every stoker who survived the disaster claimed that a coal fire had been ablaze since before they left Southampton and right up until the Saturday the 13th at 2 o'clock. The officer wished to remain anonymous as he claimed that all the men had been warned not to talk about the disaster. He said that in my opinion this fire played no small part in the disaster, for when the bow was stove in, the waters readily tore open the watertight bulkheads behind which had been this coal. If the coal had been still in the second and third sections when the vessel struck the iceberg, it would have probably helped the bulkhead to resist the strain. Could a 3-day coal blaze piled up on the steel hull have weakened the rivets of this one-skin ship? The metal plates in the central part of the Titanic's hull were held together with triple rows of mild steel rivets. However, the plates in the bow and stern were held with double rows of wrought iron rivets. Instead of the usual number 4 iron rivet, these were number 3 iron rivets, which have a higher level of slag inclusions, making them more brittle and more prone to snapping under stress, especially in extremely cold circumstances. Ultrasound surveys of the wreck have found that the hull had 6 narrow openings. The longest was around 12 meters long, and they all appeared to follow the line of the hull plates, suggesting that the iron rivets had indeed popped or snapped off. Apparently the Titanic didn't just receive one iceberg warning, but a total of 6. All of these warnings were ignored in one way or another. The radio operators ignored the first ones because they were delayed fixing faulty equipment, and the latter ones were ignored because they were too busy relaying all the backed up messages that had resulted from the repair delay. The captain ignored them because he had already altered his course farther south to warmer waters, and it was uncommon to find icebergs that far south. He was also relying on the lookouts on deck and in the crow's nest to warn him if they were approaching any icebergs. In 1912, the Earth came unusually close to both the Moon and the Sun. This produced record-breaking tides which increased the amount of ice floating in the Atlantic and the distance it travelled. Had the captain known of this increase, perhaps he may have been warier of icebergs. Second Officer David Blair was transferred off the Titanic before it set sail. In his pocket he had the key to the storage box where the binoculars were kept. Had the captain known his lookout crew had no binoculars, he may not have put so much trust in them. No lifeboat drill had been completed or safety precautions explained, so the passengers didn't know what to do or where to go, and the crew didn't know how to direct them, how to load or lower the lifeboats, or even just how to warn everybody aboard they were having an emergency. The Titanic sank without a single alarm having been sounded, so it seems that we can't actually be sure what caused the Titanic to sink. Maybe a fire or negligence, poor quality materials, or inadequate training, a freak act of nature, or maybe it was the combination of all of these reasons. But one thing we can be sure of was that it certainly wasn't, as the Board of Trade so conveniently put it, solely the result of colliding with an iceberg. What do you think really happened out there that tragic night? Let us know in the comments.